This is a change of scenery. I am outside. I don't know what I want to do with I don't know what I want to do with my setup. So I said screw it. I'm going to come outside. Also, I am changing the way the show works. I am coming unscripted. I am just going to be raw and just come with my vulnerability, because that is our superpower. And I might cry on this episode, but it's whatever. It's something so soothing about just being out in nature, hearing the wind blow, hearing the birds chirp. It's something so soothing and so relaxing and so calming. This week was rough for me. And I can feel the tears about to flow. This week was rough for me. At work, at home, I'm a mom. And I really don't even know where to start. So I'm just going to talk. And one of the hardest things that I am doing right now, and this is motherhood related. So the hardest thing is trying to get through your ish and also not put that ish on your kid, and also trying to help them not develop any of the ish that you have currently going on. So you're not trying to dump all your traumas and the things that you have learned that are, simply put, not good for you, and you try not to put that on your kid. And for me, hopefully the wind is not. I'm gonna let the plane go by. Okay, I'm gonna start talking. So that is hard, stopping yourself, because when you are so aware of yourself, and this is for me, when I'm so aware of myself now and my triggers, and it's hard because sometimes when you are speaking to your kid or doing something to your kid, and you're like, oh, is it me? Hope this bee do not sting me. Oh my God. The cons of doing a podcast outside. The only way I can say this is I start to beat myself up. Because I'm like, oh my God, this is what I know, right? This is what I've learned in the past, and this is how I think this situation should be handled. That's one side of me. And then the other side of me that's growing and that's aware is like, there's a different way to do something with your kid. And sometimes it's just like, but what is that way? I don't even know if that makes sense. I don't want my kid to have like extreme trauma that I had to endure. And as a mom, I always beat myself up, and I always say, am I doing the right thing? Am I going to traumatize my kid by the things that I say, by the things that I do, right? Am I doing the right thing? Am I being the best parent for my child? And I beat myself up all the time. These questions run through my head all the time. And it's just like, yo, am I doing the right thing? You know? And there's, and we get from other people, oh, like, oh, you're a great mom. Oh, you're doing so great with Eli. You're doing a great job. Don't beat yourself up. You're amazing. You're an amazing mom. He's taken care of. But it's like, yo, it's like in 20 years, like, am I doing the right things right now? Like, if I say this one thing, is he going to carry that with him for like the rest of his life? Or the way that I say a thing, or the way that I do things, or right now me working, is that going to impact him? It's like all these things that's just run through my head. And one of my fears, I talked with my partner, and we were just talking about fears one day, and I told him my fear is that I fail as a parent. That is my fear. And I want to be the best mom that I can be for my son. I want to be the best mom when he grows up, right? And when all things are said and done, I want to say that I put my best foot forward, that I, did what I had to do. But it's just like, it's just crazy being a parent. It's just crazy being a parent. Man, and I don't know if anybody else feels like that, but it's just crazy being a parent. So that's one thing that I've been dealing with for a while. And what I used to deal with in parenting, I don't even know why this is just on my mind, is black and white thinking. And I actually, this goes even outside of parenting or being a mom. It's just like I used to have this black and white way of thinking, and I'm still dealing with it today, and I still work through it, and let me make sure we're good. Black and white thinking, and it's just like, if I'm bad in this one area, then I'm bad in all the other areas, right? So if one day I feel like I'm not being a good mother, or I had to, get into Eli, or I'm not just being, I feel like what is wrong with me as a mom, right? That will then trail into, like, oh, I'm not good enough, right? Like, oh, I'm this mom, like, oh, I had to, oh, for example, this is a perfect example, because I'm trying to think of an example to wrap it all together. Me and my son had a rough day, and it resulted in him saying like, oh, I want a new mother, and oh, sometimes there's I hate you, and those words hurt me, and I internalize a lot. And in those moments when I internalize those, I take them personally. So when I do that, I go into thoughts like, oh, I'm not good enough. I'm not a good enough mother. I start to question myself. I'm like, oh, I'm not good enough. Oh, that leads to I'm a bad person, right? And then I get into these spirals of where I'm like crying, because I have categorized myself as I'm this bad person all around, right? And there is this, and I've realized that you can you can feel not so good in one area and still be an amazing person. So it's like, yo, I don't feel good as being a mom right now yet, but I'm still a great person. So you can be one thing and another. You can be all the things, right? You just don't have to put yourself in a box of like, oh, I'm just this horrible, horrible person. It's just like, no, right now, I am this, I am this and that. But my black and white thinking would be, oh, I am this bad person all around, or I'm not good enough all around, or then it goes into this thinking like, I don't deserve this, I don't deserve that, I'm not worthy. I just go into this spiral. And sometimes I used to get into those spirals for like days, and I don't even know, I'm just all over the place. But it's just like, I can have a bad day or mess up, but I'm still a good person. I'm still worthy of all the things, you know. This kid's playing. This reminds me of the songs by, is it the group called the Canes? I can't remember, but the lyrics say, it's on my best day, I'm a child of God, and on my worst day, excuse me, I'm a child of God. And I love that song. I love that song. And that song reminds me, it's like, yo, like, on my worst days, like on my bad days, when I'm not doing my best, when I feel like I'm the worst person, horrible, I am still worthy. Like, we are still worthy, regardless if we have a bad day, regardless if we are characterized as a bad person, whether we are just down and, we feel like we're the worst person in the world. We are still deserving, as long as we continue to improve ourselves. And I am realizing that, when I first started my podcast, I honestly, I'm be real blunt, right? This is a safe space. I was, I think subconsciously, because I didn't even know I was consciously doing it. After I looked back on my videos, it was just like, yo, I'm trying to be something that I'm not, right? I'm trying to come with this perfect person, or even as like a person that not knows it all, because we don't know it all, but it's just like, no, I'm going to come as me. And that's why I came on here with no makeup. That's why I came on here with just me. I do got on a wig, but because I just wanted to be free and come as myself. And so that's why we're doing something different. We're outside with nature, hearing the birds chirp and the wind blow, and I'm just talking off the dome, bars, because this is who I am. I am a woman that is finding herself, a woman that is, I even hate saying finding myself, because it's just like, it's like, when do we find ourselves, right? It's like, I'm creating myself. There we go. I'm creating myself, and I am learning myself, and I am unlearning things, and I am, just trying to make it. And what does that even mean? What does even trying to make it means? It's like, I'm trying to survive, and that's not a good thing either. I've realized that about a couple months ago, I came to the realization that I've been on survival mode for 28 years of my life. And I realized that you find that out in a different couple ways. I realized that I could not recall what I'd done in the last week, the last month. I couldn't even recall what I did in the last few hours because I have been just trying to survive and make it through the days, and I couldn't recall things. I couldn't even talk about certain things because I'm like, I don't even know what I did. And what I've been doing recently is I've done research on this when it comes to like figuring out that you've been in survival mode for years and it's going to take years to, come out of that. You have to intentionally slow yourself down. So I would realize that I'm running to places. I feel like I'm always in a rush. So that was one of the symptoms. It's like you always feel like you're in a rush when you're in survival mode. I found myself running up the stairs to get to some place all the time. And I'm like, why am I running? Why am I running up the stairs? Like, where am I rushing to? Another one is, like I said, you couldn't remember what you did in the last week and the last month. For example, my partner, he asked me a question like a few months ago. He was like, so what is one thing that you Darnie, what did he say? See what I'm saying? He was like, what is one thing that made you laugh like super hard, And as I'm thinking back, I remember, and when I was sitting there in that moment trying to think back, I was like, okay, in my head, I'm like, I remember laughing super hard, but I could not remember in depth what I was laughing at, what conversations were had when I was laughing, and I eventually said something, or I eventually was able to bring it up, or I wasn't able to talk about it in depth, but I was able just to talk around it and about kind of what it was. But at that moment, I start to think, and I start to do research. Google can take you down some paths, but I start to realize yo, I'm in survival mode. And it wasn't just that. And then I reflected. The best thing you can do for yourself is to reflect. That is the most amazing thing that has happened in my life and that I do regularly is reflect. And reflecting is where you will learn everything you need to know. Reflecting will help you to see and put everything into perspective. And we could talk about reflection later, but as I was reflecting, and I was just like, yo, I have been in survival mode for 28 years of my life. That's scary, because now I'm just cruising in life, trying to make it to the next day. And I'm not living life. I'm not enjoying life. I'm not slowing down and taking in the fresh air. I'm not slowing down and being in the present, in the moments, taking in the time that I'm spending with my friends and my family. I'm just surviving. I'm trying to make it to the next day. And it's scary. Because it's I want to live. Life is short to just be surviving. Life is too short to not take in the beauty of God's creation. Life is too short. And I don't even know where I was going with this, but this is how I wanted my podcast to be. This is it. And this is what I'm going to do. But anyways, I'm coming to realizations to help me to stop And to slow myself down, I have to start in the morning, right? So this just works for me. And it has been working for me for a while. In the mornings, I have to either meditate or do yoga. Those are two things that I have to do in order to slow myself down. And sometimes I'm not able to do it. And I can tell in my body, the way that I move, the way that I talk, the way that I interact with people. I can tell when I do slow down in the morning versus when I don't slow down in the morning. 100%. But when I do slow down, I do yoga, I meditate, I read. It slows my body down. It helps my body to calm down and to really okay, I'm okay. It is okay, Also, when I find myself or when I consciously know that I'm running somewhere, it's Libria, slow down. We're not in a rush. I have to mentally tell myself okay, chill. So halfway running up the stairs, I would stop myself because I'd be in a rush, and I also have to give myself grace because I have been on the go since 10 years old. And I now have to retrain my brain to slow down. Take a beat. Chill out. It's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. So, I don't even know what I talked about in this episode. I don't even know how it's going to look. I don't even know if I'm going to post this. But I'm excited for this series. I think I'm going to rename the whole podcast. I think I'm going to do, I don't know, something like outside conversations or outside therapy or nature and therapy or nature conversations, something. And my goal is to have guests on here, and we're going to have these types of conversations, just open and honest. And I think sharing your story is the best thing that you can ever do, because that lets people know that, one, we are not alone, and number two, that everybody is going through something. Either somebody is going through something or somebody just got out of something and they're heading into something, right? It's we're always going through something. And I think what is beautiful is community, and being around people and sharing our stories and, just being real with each other and letting each other know that we all go through stuff. We are not alone. I am not the only person that is going through this as a mother. I am not the only person going through this as a woman, as a person. And I used to think when I was in my early 20s and I was going through a lot, and we'll talk about that later, I realized that, I used to think that I had nobody to talk to. I had nobody to go to. Nobody will understand, and nobody is going through the same thing I was going through. What's crazy is at the time, millions of people were going through depression. Millions of moms were going through things with their families, with their children. You can count that you and thousands of other people are going through the same thing as you. So please don't do what I did. Please know that you can go get help. You can go find somebody, find you a safe space. It's so needed. We can't go through this alone. We can't. Even if we think we can, we can't. We need community. We need people around us, because I've realized that I would not be where I am today if I did this alone. If I didn't walk in that therapy room, almost close to 4 or 5 years ago, I would not be here today. If I didn't confide in the ones that are close to me and learn how to be vulnerable, because I used to be emotionally unavailable, if I didn't learn how to open up, I would not be sitting here talking to you today. And I thank God. I thank God that we get second chances. I thank God that He did not give up on me. I thank God that He showed me mercy. And that He still loves me. Whew. I thank God that even through the bad, that even through the heartache, the heartache, the pain, the suffering, like even through all of it, He's still good. And that I am deserving. And that I am worthy. There's a B. Oh my God. That B. And that you have to go through some things in order to truly see the good in something. I've been rambling for 30 minutes, but I hope that you got something out of this episode. And, so this is Labria signing out. And, yeah.